Hey everybody, Tanner Hawkins here again. We're doing our second Wisdom of the Elders, and I've got Pete Washeck with me here, so I'm going to actually swing around. We're going to kind of hear Pete's story and experience in the truth. So, Pete, what's your name, where you're from? Give me all that jazz.
Okay. Name's Peter Eldon Washeck. Was born in Wichita, Kansas. Our ecclesia was the Carthage, Missouri ecclesia. It was the closest to our location. We did live on the farm there close by at opportunity, but I was born and raised in, as well as one of my sisters was born in Wichita.
So, I'm trying to think, because what was the first family member to actually be in the truth? Like, was it multiple generations?
Oh yeah, my dad's mom was raised in the truth. Her husband, my grandpa, was not. He was a mason. They were both farmers. They lived and worked on a farm. That's where my dad was born and raised, and an uncle and an aunt also were born there. And it became our home away from home. We all loved the farm. Yeah. We all went there for gatherings and get-togethers. Never missed meeting. I mean, it was a 125-mile drive, but it was doable, you know. We'd leave after...
For meeting?
Huh?
125 miles for meeting?
Yeah.
Every day? Oh, wow. Every Sunday?
Every Sunday.
Golly. How long did it take you guys to get there?
2.5 hours.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But you went every week, though?
We went every week. We went to meeting. Totally. And my aunt lived there, which was my dad's sister, Laura Preble.
Laura Pearl, okay.
And James Washeck lived in St. Louis. He wasn't able to come all the time because of his work schedules and stuff, but he and his families would come down at least once a month and be there. St. Louis had their own small ecclesia at that time. Yeah. They met there in their homes.
So you grew up learning about the truth. Like when you were younger, I know it's a different perspective for people who are from outside of the truth and they hear it, and then people who are just, they hear it all their lives. And how did you respond to it? I mean, did you always believe it? This is what I believe, or was there a time you kind of rebelled against or had to search things out for yourself? What was
It's kind of a strange and sad story in some ways. My mom, who was not in the truth, she was not in the truth when Dad married her, but she learned the truth. But it took a number of years for her to come around to the state of baptism. Okay? But me, there was 4 of us children, and our biggest thrill in life was meeting and Bible school. Yeah. At Arkansas Bible School, it was a joyous time. None of us ever regretted having to sit in a hot car. We didn't have air conditioning in them days. And Arkansas was during the hottest time of the year in mid-August in Arkansas.
So what years are we talking about here?
We're talking about, I was born in 48. So from 48 until Arkansas closed down, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of funny to think of it now, we're willing to go far less distance for far less inconveniences.
Right.
You know, there's so many things. This isn't exactly how I want it, and we just won't do it. Where back then, you guys would go all that, you'd make it work. You know? Yeah. 2.5 hours of Sunday school every Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 5 hours of driving a day.
Sure.
That's incredible. So you personally, how did you latch on to the truth?
I was raised in it.
But so you always accepted it?
I always accepted it. In fact, in school, even in grade school, they called me the preacher.
Oh, really? Did you tell kids about it when you were in school?
Oh, yes. Talked about it all the time.
Well, I know that it's probably different than it is today, but in the schools back then, how was that received? I mean, did they ever tell you to stop, or how did people respond to it? I mean,
the kids, my group of kids, the grades I was in throughout all that time was, they were all acceptable of it. But religion was something that was still strong on families' minds back then. Yeah. It later changed when they threw God out of the Bible, and they threw God out of the school, and they threw all this stuff out to eliminate God, that's when things really got nasty and ugly. But all the time I was growing up, all the way through, well, not high school, the end of high school, it was getting iffy. Nobody wanted to hear it. Nobody cared about it. Nobody.
So did you stop talking about it?
No, I didn't stop. If I was given an opportunity, I always jumped on it.
So what would you talk about? Like, would like a situation arise and that kind of scriptural principles comes into play, or like prophecy stuff? Like, because that's not, even now I always think it's interesting. How do you talk to people about the truth in a way that's just sincere? It's natural, So like, when you talk, I'm sure there's probably a bunch of different examples, but like, how did you talk to people about it?
Well, here's a good example. When I was in, I think it was middle school, the beginning of middle school, I was taking a biology class, and the professor was high on, you know what, and it got to the point that he would tell me, we don't talk about that in class. This is what we're learning, evolution, And I told him, I wasn't ugly about it. I just gave him my opinion. I said, okay, I know how to answer your questions. I know the answer you're expecting, but I'm going to give you my answer as well. So it showed up on the paper. And I never got a passing grade. I mean,
so
I passed.
You gave him the answer he wanted.
I gave him the answer he wanted, but then I said, but Scripture says this.
It's funny you say that, because like that's something I really struggled with in school, because you don't want to be disrupting class, because that's their role. It's kind of like we're supposed to respect the rulers of our age, because God put them in place, and you got your role. So you respect the role, not necessarily the individual in it. But my conscience was bearing heavily on me when we're in science class talking about evolution. But one case, I finally did speak up. I started going to community college in St. Charles. There, we had it was a history class. And one of the first things she talks about is world history. So she goes back to school, the world's millions of years old and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm just nervous. But I felt like I need to say something so she at least knows that. What I think I told her is, I said, hey, just so you know, I'm going to memorize what you need me to memorize, but here's what I believe and here's why. And she just said, okay. I mean, it was literally like, she shrugged her shoulders like, okay, I don't care. She just wants to have the right answer. So it was not the response I was expecting, well, how do you believe that? Blah, blah, blah. And I never got that at all. She was like, sure. Because she probably has students like that all the time. They just don't say it. But the fear of actually how to speak up, how to talk about it in a way, because not everybody's going to listen.
No. But you see, with what I did with that professor or that teacher, interested some of the classmates.
Oh, so you did.
And they would, they would come up after class or during lunch break or recess or whatever and ask me questions. That's why I got the name, The Preacher.
That's what I should have done. Because I went up to her after class one day.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to make a scene in front of her, like put her in a bad position. But I mean, honestly, I probably should have done what you're doing, because it is preaching in a way. It's confessing our faith, and like Christ, when you think of all the times he contended with the Pharisees, he knew their hearts. He knew they were not going to listen. It was for the people around him
that hurt.
That he,
exactly.
I think he engaged with them. So
exactly.
That's what I should have done. But that's why
we'll learn. We'll learn. There's other possibilities out there. The idea is not to be fearful of standing up for the truth. As you understand it. I wasn't baptized. I was still a kid. So but I knew baptism was coming. I knew that was expected of me.
So how old were you at this time when you
early teens, maybe.
Is this
late.
School?
No. This was in middle school. Middle school. We used to call it junior high. Okay, I just started junior high, which was sixth, seventh, eighth. I can't remember what it was. That was 60 years ago. But anyway, that's part of your biblical learning as a child, and the responsibility of you as a parent is to don't be fearful of talking about it.
So that's a question. Was that taught to you, or was that, because some people, I think they're just naturally, they'll speak their minds, they don't care.
Yeah,
and some people, I think more like myself, where I want to make sure, when I think of preaching the word, if I don't speak up, it's usually because I'm afraid that I'm not going to say the right thing and actually end up doing the opposite, where I'm actually misrepresenting the word.
Yeah.
Or either by saying something wrong or by the way I say it.
Or act.
Acting wrong.
Yeah.
So like when you speak up, was that just Pete being Pete? Or
That was me.
Like, okay, I need to do this.
No, it was me, but I knew there was nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not an evil thing that I took on. You know, it was just, this is what I believe. This is how I feel about it. And I'm not ashamed to be a religious background. I'm not ashamed of that. Yeah. You know, whereas some of the kids were, you know, the churchgoers and stuff. Because that was the beginning of the change of, you know, the evolutionary thing of moving from being decent, honest students to being what we have today. Yeah. You know, a bunch of heathens.
Yeah. Well, other question on that. You're talking about like your parents teaching you.
Yes.
How did they teach you? Like what was?
We did our daily readings.
So you did readings together?
We did our daily readings every night after supper. That was just a requirement. There was no, I don't feel like doing it tonight. No, you know, you didn't say that. You sat down with your Bible, you opened up where you were supposed to be at, and you did your share of reading. From little people, as soon as they could read, we were all reading the scriptures. I was the oldest, so naturally I got to lead it, but no, we had our Sunday school. And I'm not saying we made every Sunday to there, people sick, you know, dad, yeah, something like that. So, but we always had our Sunday school. We always had Sunday school. In fact, that was something that amazed Kathy before we got married and just dating. You know, every Sunday we had to be at the house. Yeah. You know, she was in college and I was working.
So you have your readings every day. How long did that go? Like when you got, I mean, I can see as people get older, they start to have their own jobs and school and stuff. Is there an age that you kind of stopped? You were expected to kind of do it on your own?
No.
Or did you always do that?
We always did it as a family. And we spent a good hour, sometimes more, because, you know, as you mature, as you get a little older, you start questioning some things. So when we'd read something that questioned my brother or my sisters or me, we popped it to Dad. You know, we said, hey, you know, if this is right, how come this happens? You know, I can't quote you a situation.
Yeah, I mean, I've just noticed, because I try to do the readings every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like we're at the Bible school now, it's kind of hard to do it right now. But I've noticed that the more you know about the truth, the longer it takes to do your readings, which is kind of a funny thing, because you think, well, you know more, it should be able to be done faster, but with, you know, like the unsearchable, you know, you can't discover the foundations of God's wisdom.
Right.
You have more questions. Like, oh, this connects to this. So it just takes longer. Spending an hour doing the readings is super easy to do now, where I used to be able to do it in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And now I just I feel like I'm not doing it justice if I do it that fast.
You don't. But we were never, you know, back in those days, there wasn't even hardly many TVs, okay? And our favorite TV programs were like Bonanza.
But it never got in the way of your readings.
Never got in the way of the readings, no sir.
So, I guess, when were you baptized? Like, how old were you, and how did you know, all right, I'm ready for this, I need to do this now?
It was here.
Was it New Mexico Bible School?
It was at New Mexico Bible School. I was 19. I just turned 19.
So if you were born, what year?
48.
48, so that'd be, it's 8 to 9, was it? What year would that have been?
57.
Okay. So what, was there a class or was there something going on at the Bible school that made you realize I need to do this, or something like the world that was going on? Like why then, I guess?
No, well, there's two theories to that. Well, that was in 67, okay?
Oh, it was 60. Okay, so you got 6
While
days
we
war.
were here. While we were here, that war was going on.
1967
You know,
war, yeah.
or had gone on, I don't remember.
Because it was June, I think, 6 days, it was early June, I think that it
Yeah.
happened. But, so it was barely a month old, I guess,
Yeah,
at
yeah.
that time.
But when that war started, there was a lot of young people who, decided it's time. There was more young people baptized in 1967, I guess, than any other time because of that war.
Yeah. And I bet it's probably people looking at Psalm 83 war.
Yeah.
And talk, like that's a lot of those same nations were doing a similar thing. It wasn't
Yeah.
obviously that wasn't it, but it was
Right.
very similar. And man, had I been living at the time, I'd be doing the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's one aspect, right?
Okay. The other aspect was I had gone to Arizona to work. We were working in the lettuce fields. So I had been working in central Arizona. We moved over here to Hatch, which is just on the other side of Las Cruces over there, and started working those fields. Well, then we realized there's an ecclesia here in Alamogordo, Cloudcroft, La Luz. So Mom and Dad were coming down with the kids to attend meeting here. Denver wasn't so hot at the time. I mean, we knew they were there, but I don't know what the reason was why we never tried. Mike, when he had to move to Denver to do some work, he started attending. And after that, then we swapped between the two. Denver's a lot closer than Alamogordo is. But anyway, I came over here to be with them and attend meeting. I thought, well, hey, this is a good thing. I'm going to be in Hatch. It's a 100-mile drive. That's not a big deal. I can be here every Sunday.
Yeah.
Well, there were, in this ecclesia, in the beginning, there were 2 boys and 5 girls, all of them cuties, and all our age, So I started dating 1 or 2 of them and hanging out with them, and between the war and knowing what I had here, I thought, well, it's time. It's time to get baptized.
You just felt like there was nothing else, that you had everything you needed, you knew enough. It's just.
Oh, it wasn't due to ignorance of the truth. I had that hammered into me since I was big enough to start understanding the English language, But then, you finally realize that, because I was all about work. That's all I wanted to do was work. I didn't want to go to college. I didn't want to go to school anymore. All I wanted to do was work. I wanted a job. And I did. I was working, that's why I went down there. That was another job that I could have and make money with. Mm-hmm. And it was fun. I like that kind of stuff.
So, when did you, being a brother, you get baptized? Did you start speaking pretty quickly?
No, I'm not a speaker and I'm not a teacher.
No? I feel like...
I'm not fearful of it. I'm not afraid to stand up. I can preside and do well.
So you can talk about it. You're happy talking to people about a conversation, just not up in a formal setting.
Yeah.
Well, kind of in your upbringing, a lot of people, they look back at some of the pioneer writings, or like this book, we were studying this and going through that was kind of integral. And some people, their parents would read that, but they would teach it strictly from the Bible. So like, were there any works that you studied or read when you were younger that like this had a big impact on me, or is it all through the Bible? Or
No, not really. The Bible has been, the main focus. We've referenced other writings before, Thomas and all of them. We've said that you can find this here.
Yeah, they're kind of crediting like this person says this in this book or something, but it's being taught out of the Bible.
Well, everything came out of the scriptures. That was it. The whole thing was all about the Bible. In fact, my younger brother, he sees no sense in. I mean, it's not that he doesn't read it, but he says the truth is found in the scriptures, and that's where he focuses his attention at. You know, he knows his Bible. He can quote it from front to back. You know, and he gives excellent exhortations and classes and stuff. But I'm just not a good teacher because I don't talk right. I don't. I mean, even my wife doesn't understand me. My children don't understand me sometimes when I'm trying to say something. Yeah. I get it all boogered up and messed up, and I do get a little loud sometimes when I'm speaking. You know, I get enthusiastic about it, and then everybody accuses me of yelling at them. No, I'm not yelling. I'm not. Well, I've just got a Washeck voice. We've got a voice that we don't need a microphone.
That's true.
We don't need a microphone.
That's true. But no, I think that's an important thing because I feel like, especially when more and more generations that their family has always kind of been in the truth, it can be easy to teach out of these books to where those are the authority, and not that they're trying to minimize the scripture, but we get the idea of how am I trying to say this? We shouldn't, if we're trying to prove a concept, we're talking to somebody in the world, or even a brother or sister, we shouldn't say, this is true because Dr. Thomas or Thomas Williams or whatever said this in this book. We should be able to go chapter and verse, and it might be, they might have a way of saying something that verse teaches, but we need to be careful to teach, I think, out of the scriptures so people can see we're people of the book, see the chapter and verse.
Well, my dad always thought that, because he read them, we just didn't study them.
Yeah, and that's, I think, good. You get the information.
Because when we got older, then now I have read them all. I've read all of them 2 or 3 times, but I do that on a side from the scriptures. The daily reading is still the primary teacher and go-to for knowing things. Now, a lot of those old writers, they brought some of the stuff that I have confusion with when I read their books. Now I understood it. That's why I like going to the Bible schools and listening to the brothers speak, because I learned they answer a lot of my questions.
It's like using the book as like a fellow student, where, hey, here's some concepts, but test them and try them like somebody else in the class, instead of like this is the authority, scripture is the authority. So I guess that kind of gets to another thing. You do your daily readings, and you've got supplements with these Pioneer or whatever study sources you're reading. That's what I've been trying to do, but time, life, all that stuff. So
you have to get to my age before you really have the time to do it.
So how did you do it when you were younger? Did you just focus on the scriptures and try to fill in any gaps in your schedule you had? You fill in.
That was daily reading. That was its purpose, to keep us going on the scriptures. We read, Dad explained, we talked. As we got older, we started discussing things as mature instead of infants. But the daily readings were always the primary thing, because that's about the only thing you could squirrel in to a family schedule. Kids have got classes, you got ball games, you've got all the things that I never thought that was a good idea.
All those extracurricular things, you mean?
Well, yeah, having to gobble down supper right quick because boys have a ball game tonight, or the girls have a softball game, or just all the activities that schools demand from. Because I always thought the school should be, my philosophy was that the school should be for education, not sports, not sports, not.
And people there's lessons you can learn out of anything if you're looking at it. Like almost every subject is interesting in the light of Scripture. But, at a point though, you have to prioritize, because we only have so many hours in a day.
Yeah.
And you have to prioritize. And I remember where I was in high school. I played football in middle school, and I ended up, it was okay, but I think for me, there were 2 reasons I stopped my sophomore year. I think I even quit halfway through, which I didn't like the concept of doing, but it felt wrong to keep doing it. So I was hanging around a bunch of guys. I was kind of forced to. I'm on the team. Guys that were not good people to hang around.
Right.
And secondly, though, all this extra time I have, I feel like I wanted to get more time. I felt like those were the more important things. Not that I wouldn't get anything out of playing, but I'm gonna get way more out of my time with the Word.
You were the wise one, thinking that way or desiring that. Most kids that age aren't even thinking about the truth. They do their daily readings, but as far as, okay, I'm mature enough now to be baptized and learn how to speak and teach and pray and all that stuff that's required of our brothers and sisters, And again, I played baseball. I had opportunities and I played baseball. But again, I go back to myself. I really wasn't. I mean, I knew the truth. I could debate you as a equal, in school. I could debate you and probably come out on top most of the time, because they went to Sunday school, but I don't know what they were being taught. Yeah. What they were being taught. We in Arkansas, as soon as we got out of baby school, knowing the ark and the flood and all that stuff, and started reading First Principles. We were in First Principles from that age, which maybe 10, 11, I don't know, all the way until we were teenagers.
So you really had that drilled home, which makes sense. I mean, these are first principles. If you don't have this foundation to build on,
right,
you're building on a foundation of sand.
Right.
And that's something I think just over time, we know the first principles. We assume other people do, but that means they don't get talked about, and therefore upcoming generations don't know about them because it's assumed knowledge.
See, that's something that once I recognized it, I started talking, in the ecclesia or Bible school we were at. That was part of my conversation. What's your first principle class like? Well, we don't have first principle. Yeah. And I'm thinking, how can you raise all these babies without first principle education? How are they going to understand all these things that you've been explaining to us, in our daily readings what's that all about? It was difficult. It was something we lost. It was something we lost over the years. And to me, it's a primary thing.
It should. I mean, it's the first principle.
Yeah.
That's what that means.
Yeah.
It's the milk of the Word.
Yeah.
Before you can get to the meat.
It's nice to know about the flood and the creation and all the the little people stuff that they hear and learn about. That's a step forward. But once they reach that knowledge, then you start hammering in the first principles.
I mean, a lot of first principles are even impregnated in those stories that we teach them when they're young.
Sure they are.
Helping them see that. But, I wanted to ask you, because you've been in the truth, you've been baptized for a long time, you've been in the truth
all my life.
Household all your life.
Yeah.
What obstacles kind of have you faced when you look back on your life and, maybe like in the workplace or...
I can tell you my whole life story, if you wanted to hear it. No, life has been rough for me. I mean, I've loved my life. I've loved everything about it. But I guess knowing all the other brothers, I always considered myself a weak brother because I was gullible. I had to catch myself because I could go astray, in circumstances like working and stuff. I could go astray and follow the crowd.
So you felt a draw to
Well, like, yeah,
That's the natural
the
flesh,
weakness,
yeah.
the weakness of my flesh was very weak, as far as I was concerned. What I knew of the scriptures and what I had seen in other people, it was a fight, a constant fight with me, to not get pulled away.
Well, so like, you mean like was in the workplace? Was that a big place?
That was a terrible place. That was all of my workplaces has been, because I like outdoors. You know, everything I do is outside.
Manual labor.
Manual labor. You can't hurt me. I mean, you can't send me to do something that I'm not willing to take on. I'll get it done. You know, you get it done. Well, a perfect example is my grandfather, Dad's dad, the mason. He was a rough man, sweetheart, but he was rough.
So you've always liked the manual labor stuff, and I guess just with the nature of the job, you're in rough crew sometimes, or
You're in rough crews most of the time. The vulgarity, the thoughts process. No, these computer jobs where you're just sitting in your own little cubicle and working on a computer, that's the way to go. I mean, it wasn't for me.
If you can.
If you
as
can.
far as at least, because, you know, we want to be like, or we kind of acclimate to the situations we're in.
Yeah.
So I guess you found yourself in this rough crew. You want to, like, just found yourself talking or thinking like them? Or,
No. But it was a fight, because I could have. I could very well have, you know. It's a rough world out there.
Well, did you, because I know when you were in school, you would talk to the people about the truth at all.
Yeah.
Did that continue when you were working, or did that change?
It continued. If I was given the opportunity, I didn't hesitate to make a statement, but I never got anything in return for it.
Yeah.
There was never, hey, why don't we go out for lunch today and talk about that a little bit, you know, something like that. Bosses.
Well, it's like, you know, we spread the seed, and it lands on all different kinds of ground. Our job is to spread it. It's God who gives the increase, as Paul said. Well, and as far as like challenges and trials and things like that, you were conscientious objector, right?
Yes.
Was it for
Yes.
the Vietnam? What were?
Yeah, it was Vietnam.
So what? I don't think I've even heard the story of this. Like, I assume you were drafted.
Yeah.
So what happened? Like, tell me the story
Well,
of that.
it was one of those things where we used to group together. So one year, we all decided to go to the Canadian Bible School. And we came through here and picked them up, and all of us went to Canadian Bible School. And we spent the week up there. We headed home. Mom had called. We didn't have cell phones at the time, but she had left a message for me to call home that I had gotten a notice from the draft to be in Oklahoma City on this date at this time. You're drafted.
You just got out of a Bible school, or you're at the Bible school.
We're at the Bible school when we get the notice. So Glenn, we jumped in the car and headed home, and he dropped me off in Oklahoma City where I was supposed to be. And then him and the girls, he went down and dropped them off where they belonged, and then he took the car back home and dropped it off. Because nobody knew what happened to me. Nobody knew what was going to, I didn't even know what was going to happen. So I went, but I didn't step forward. I didn't. And this is why I say in my life there's been so many experiences that I've had with angels. And I think this was one of them. Because there was 50 guys in that building. They were all going through, getting their shots and all this kind of stuff. And then we had to all come out and stand and take the oath. We were supposed to step one step forward. And I didn't. So the guy came up to me and said, you know, I'm going to give you another chance. I said, waste of time.
Give me as many as you want, but
It's a waste of time because that's my belief, and I'm not.
So prior to that, had you mentioned your position, or is this the first?
Oh no, everybody knew I was a CO.
Okay, so they were just making you go through the process, and
Well,
I guess
he happened to be ex-military. He was a big shot in the military. That little thing down there that he wasn't. That's what I'm saying. He thought he was. But I told him, him and I talked about it every day. I told him, I said, because he asked me, he said, "You're turning 18." He says, "Are you gonna go into the draft?" I said, "No." "Well, why not?" And we had a long talk about truth there. Of course, he didn't believe anything about it. He says, "No, you'll go. I said, no, I won't. He said, "Well, there's consequences if you don't." I said, "There's consequences if I do, okay? I'm not going." "Oh, you'll go." Well, he made me go, because when I got my first draft card, it was 4A. You're next in line, boy.
so 4A, that's like a ranking or something.
Yeah.
Or order. So, what part of it made you think the angels were involved in helping you out of it?
Well, I didn't step forward. So a short time, in fact, we were working up the hills, the mountains, and a U.S. Marshal showed up at Dad's front door. And I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And they said,
You're
going to jail, boy. You're going to jail." But they see the violence that could have happened there. Those 50 guys that were all on their way to Vietnam, and I'm refusing to go.
So you're one of 49.
Yeah.
And they're all
going,
yeah.
except me. I'm the coward.
And
it amazed me, because I really expected, because I was in the front row, and it was 3 or 4 rows behind me, and the exit door was behind them. And I really expected that, that guy that's running the thing is, had a signal or something to him, take him out, just take him out. So I really expected that. And not a one of them punched me, not a one of them shoved me, not a one of them made a comment to me. I walked out that back door, hitchhiked a bus, and headed home.
kind of like when you're talking about that, it makes me think of Daniel's friends in the lions. That were like they stood their ground. There's all kinds of ways that could have gone.
Yeah.
But they came out okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you actually went to jail then?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I went to prison.
Well, how long were you there?
Well, I had 5 years. They sentenced me to 5 years for refusing the draft. And there was guys in there for 5 years because they got stopped or caught smoking a joint of marijuana. They got 5 years. Everybody was under 5 years.
Were you under there the whole time?
No.
Okay.
No.
How'd you get out?
Here we go with the angels again.
Okay.
They took me to prison. Well, it took a long time to get there. These U.S. Marshals, they have to stop at every cop office and chit-chat and talk. And so I was left in a cell with a concrete floor, and I was wore out. I was tired. So I just laid down on the floor and went to sleep. And finally the marshal came in and he, wake up, boy, wake up, we gotta go. And he delivered me to the prison in, it was in Oklahoma, just west of Oklahoma City, Yukon, or that's not the name, but there's 2 little towns out there. Anyway, in the middle of the night. So I entered prison, and I was there for 6 months, not 5 years.
Oh, goodness. Wow.
But you know what happened? It was just like last night. Every ecclesia, every brother, this is bringing tears to my eyes, but every brother, every sister sent cards and letters to that judge.
To get you out of there.
This is wrong. And that was the other reason that I got baptized, because I knew this was going to happen, and I knew what the opportunity was, that I was going to go to prison. So I thought the real thing that converted me to baptism that year here, because that was the coming February, just before Thanksgiving, I went to jail. And they sent so many cards and letters daily. I mean, they were coming from all over the country, all over the world. You know, Christadelphians everywhere heard about this. And they were sending this judge cards and letters reprimanding him and telling him that this is our belief, this is our doctrine, this is the United States of America, we have a right to do. He just got so tired of it that he called the prison and said, your next meeting, get everybody there and get this guy out. Throw him out of prison. Throw him out. Now, here's the angel part of it. I didn't know it was coming. I didn't know I was going to get out.
Did you know that they had been sending all these?
Oh yes, I knew that. I worked for the captain. I was the captain's secretary. I did all the printing, cell changes, and meals list. You know, I was good at typing. So there was a guy there in prison, and this is the bad part about prison, the nasty guys, the ones that are going to make a woman out of a man, you know. And I was young, and I never considered myself handsome, but you know, it was good looking to a horny guy, you know. And he had threatened me so many times, and the captain kept asking me, he says, you having any trouble out there on the floor? No, you don't rat, you don't tell anything like that. And I said, no, not really. I said, there's guys that, you know. He said, well, don't hesitate. Well, you're not going to be a rat in prison and get somebody over here, throw it in the hole, and not pay a price, a hefty price. So anyway, every day it was this hassle, you know, especially in the chow line. He'd walk over to your table and say, you're my boy, you know. And I finally confronted him. Not threats. I just said, you know, I'm not, you'll have to kill me to do it, okay? If that's what you're going to do, you're going to have to kill me to do it. He says, I'll see you tomorrow afternoon. That very day, that was the next day, that very day, I'm sitting here typing away. The captain called me over. He says, here's your bus ticket.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. And that made me believe in angels full-heartedly, because, you know, I was a dead man the next day.
Talk about trusting in God. I mean, it makes me think of so many things. Like, well, first, you think of what Paul talks about being in, you know, bound and jail and stuff like that.
Beaten and drowning.
But it was an example in how, you know, him being in that situation was strengthening to the ecclesias, because they're seeing this person is, you know, he's sticking fast to the things that he believes, whereas all these imposters of his age, where once they reprimand him, slap him on the wrist, then they confess that they're fools. But this is truth, you know. They see you suffering through this. I mean, you think of like, you know, Joseph. I don't know what you were thinking. I'm sure you're probably thinking about Joseph on the way. I
was thinking of all of them. God protected them.
I mean, but like Joseph, you weren't just sitting there. I mean, you were, seems like, with the ranks and the roles, the people in prison there, you were doing your part in the sense of, you know, adding value. And like Joseph was leader of the prison, I guess, of however it says it. Value the trust and everything that.
Well, there's two other things in there. You know, when I first got in, my Bible disappeared. I didn't have my Bible, and it took 2 weeks for them to finally find my Bible and give it to me. So I was, you know, you're lost without it. If you don't have your Bible that you can sit and read every night and strengthen yourself, prayer helps, but man, that Bible I didn't realize how much it meant to me that I had to have it. And when I got it, man, I took it with me everywhere I went. To work, I took it up there to the office, I took it back to take a shower. I just always had that Bible with me.
It's kind of like under the law. God commanded tie these things frontless before your eyes. All these things to help them keep the word on them all the time in their mind.
Right.
But but we just came back from Kentucky Bible School where the theme was the angel of the Lord encampeth round about those that trust Him, and that's a perfect, real example of that happening because a lot of times the angels we see. Sometimes we're given glimpses of they are doing this. This is an angel that did it. And there's a lot of instances where it's angels, but it doesn't necessarily call it out.
Yeah.
Like that case was Elisha. Elisha and his servant, and Elisha asked God to open his eyes so that he could see who was on his side.
Yeah.
And there's all the angels and flaming chariots. And so, as you and I are sitting here now, we're being watched over. We're protected.
Oh, I believe it. And see, that's another lesson through daily readings that was never really discussed in meeting halls, Bible schools. The angel of God did this and this and this, but I was never educated to my understanding of what I wanted to know about where they're at and how often do you get involved with them?
Like with you personally, not just in God's plan, but His servants.
Yeah.
There's that verse that says, they're ministering spirits, or
yes.
It was sent forth to minister to those who should be heirs of salvation, which means they're working in our lives, just like they were in theirs. But there's, I think, a lesson in what you're talking about, because I know I'm 27 now. When I turned 18, with my grandpa and my dad, I think there's a lot of wisdom in what they did, but they helped me put together this conscientious objector packet, and I still have it unsealed in my files today, but it's got letters of basically other people sending you, this is what we believe, this individual is in good standing.
Yeah.
And so it's not just, because there's probably people who come up with excuses all the time.
Yeah.
Why they don't want
I'm
to
sure.
go.
Most of them went to Canada.
And showing that there is foundation for this.
I had those too.
And but also, it's not just that. You got to ensure, especially in today's age of social media, that you are actually going by that and living that way. Because let's say if I give them this package of, I'm a conscientious objector, I believe
Why did you get thrown in jail 3 times?
Yeah, or they see your social media, well, why are you posting this and this and this? It's not a consistent picture.
No, it's not.
So, especially in our day and age where there's so many more ways for people to express themselves in ways that they don't feel,
caught.
Yeah, that can come back to bite
you. It will come back. When I registered as a conscientious objector, the FBI traced my life all the way back to when I was 5 years old.
And they'll do it today.
And they'll do it today, and they'll do it to the girls too.
Yeah,
that's the part that scares me.
That's something we need to think about too, because I don't know, at least I don't know if girls have to do it yet, but it's
not yet, but it's been talked about.
But either way, the lesson is, we should always be doing what we should be doing always.
That's the thing.
Here's another reason why.
Yes, because they do that background check all the way up to my boss, the guy that said, "Oh, you'll go in, you'll go in."
So if they see, you're posting, you're talking about this kind of stuff, but you say you're telling me this, they're going to go by what you've shown yourself to be.
Exactly.
And that's kind of like the judgment.
It is.
I mean, all the things we do, God knows them all.
And you don't forget them.
He doesn't.
But see, that's what I
but
always told all my grandchildren. I told my kids, but I told my grandchildren too. Boys, you can't go out and get a bunch of speeding tickets or drag racing tickets with your hot rod cars or your trucks. You can't do any of this kind of stuff. You can't get in a fight with somebody out there because they're gonna when you file as a conscientious objector, they're going to know it. They're going to know it. Well, how come? If you believe in the love and,
You're not going to go fight over here, but you'll fight this guy here or something.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good lesson. So anybody listening, if they need assistance getting together a packet of, how to prep and plan for this kind of thing, reach out to me. I can help people with people. I know other people that can assist. Now, as we kind of start getting closer to a little wrapping up, I wanted to ask you, what can the individual do to strengthen an ecclesia?
To strengthen an ecclesia?
I mean, somebody who's part of an ecclesia, or maybe even at a Bible school like where we're at now, on the individual level, what are some things, or what advice, I guess, would you give her? Maybe you've seen...
Never say no.
People ask you to do stuff?
Never say no. Be there ready to do it and happy to do it. And most of the kids here, I know I was that way as a kid, going to Bible schools. If they needed a bunch of tables set up or patrol the grounds and pick up all the trash, I never turned any of that down, even as a youngster. Always wanted to do something, but just never say no. They ask you to. Now, I do say no to not teaching as much as I do speaking, because I'm not fearful. I'm not fearful standing up there. But I've had, I shouldn't tell you this, and I won't, but I've been reprimanded for, being too loud or not dressing appropriately. And then one sister jumped me one time she said, "You're sure hard on them kids." Because as babies sitting up on the front row, they'd start to cry or fuss. And I knew there was nothing wrong. They just weren't happy sitting there. So I'd pick them up and go all the way to the back door, take them outside. I didn't spank them. I just talked to them. I told them, "Look, everybody else is quiet, okay? You don't need anything. If you have to go to the bathroom, tell Mom, she'll take you. But you don't have to cry and scream about it.
If you're tired or if you're hungry, there's a legitimate reason. Let's get it fixed, but we're going to sit here.
Yeah, this is where we're at."
So
So she always thought I was harsh on him. But then a few years later, same sister, came up to me and said, "You have the best behaved children in this whole ecclesia." And I just kind of looked at her and smiled, and I said, "Well, how do you think they got that way? How do you think they got that way?"
Hard on those kids.
I'm hard on those kids. I don't tolerate that kind of stuff. Because the others were back in the back playing games and running trucks and...
There, but not really paying attention.
Yeah.
So I guess to sum up, how to strengthen an ecclesia, just be an active member. People ask you to do things, big or small, be a part of it. And that reminds me, when I was talking with Murray, he mentioned... there's so many jobs to do. Some are big, some are small. When we say that, some people put importance like, well, if I'm not doing this, I'm just not an important part.
Yeah.
But as we talked about, the body is a body. The eye can't say to the foot, "I don't need you," and all that.
Yeah.
But also, so having everybody engaged in doing things, but also showing that, helping them understand what you are doing is valuable.
Yeah.
Because if they don't feel valued, they don't feel like.
And so often you've seen like up here. I can't remember the two sisters that were requested to sweep out. There was 5 girls up there working.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that I say. I was up there. I was picking up everything off the floor. Bibles and games and toys and stuff, putting them on the seat so that these girls could come in and sweep and clean. There's just so many things you can do.
Well, I want to try to, in the next couple of minutes, try to wrap some stuff up. But looking forward, we're talking about, the return of Christ. Is there any individual that you're looking forward to meeting, and why? Is there anything you'd like to talk to him about, or?
Well, not necessarily talk about, just have a conversation with David. He's my favorite character, besides Jesus, of course. But David as a man, he reminds me of my likes. This is the lifestyle I could have lived back in those days.
Man of the field out there.
With the sheep and all the animals and stuff. I would, I just like to have a discussion with him just to talk.
Thinking about that makes the kingdom real.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to it because this and that. But until that happens, we're looking at, let's say Christ doesn't return for another 20, 30 years or whatever. Looking at the unamended Christadelphian community, what challenges do you think we face, we need to address, and how can we individually and collectively try to work towards strengthening our community? And
I don't think that the community as a whole, the unamended, have lost anything much, except in their children.
So this is, I'm thinking, let's say 20 years from now, when there's a change of generations, a lot of the elders who are elders now
are gone.
Yeah, so I'm thinking of that. How do we ensure that, should time go on, the rocks that we have now aren't there anymore?
We have to get stronger in the truth with our kids. The kids are losing it in so many. Well, you've got children out there protesting. You got children out there voting, getting involved in the politics of things. We got to stop that. It has to be stopped and not wait for 25 or 30 more years. It never should have begun.
Yeah.
So we need to start working now hard on the brothers and sisters who are the parents of these children. Yeah. You don't reprimand the children. You go to mom and dad and say, where do you find in the scripture that you can tolerate your son or your daughter partaking in this type of stuff? It's the same thing as saying, well, I want to be a cop when I grow up. Yeah. And I don't know whether the slack is the lack of diligent study raising your children or just ignorance. I don't.
Well, there's probably a lot of factors because we're thinking about the parents here.
Yeah.
To me, it seems like just the social media aspect where everybody can be an influencer now. Everybody sees what they perceive to be a wrong. We need to be active and change that, and that's it's a good sentiment that we want to fix things that are wrong.
Sure.
But I think we can tend to, because everybody else is just getting so active online. We can easily gravitate to that, maybe more so than in the past, where I'll start posting certain different things of being an activist, basically, but that's not usually what fixes problems in the first place. No. It's usually on the individual level.
Yeah.
So I understand the sentiment, but like you say, because our kids are going to see that, and if our kids see us that we are living for the things of this world, they're going to as well.
They're going to do it the same way.
So. No. One or two more questions for you, Pete. For our young brothers and sisters, let's say 10 to 20 or something like that, do you have any advice for them?
Well, it's study to show thyself approved unto God.
Read your Bible.
A workman that needeth not to be ashamed. All of that is a workman who needs not be ashamed. You can't be ashamed of the truth, or you can't be fearful about standing up for what you believe in and expect to gain.
And your life has been testimony of standing up for it and things working out.
And they work out.
And even though you may not, like Joseph, when he's being carried away to Egypt,
he didn't know what was going to happen.
He's got surrounded by people who speak a different language.
Yeah.
He's got so many things going through his head, but he trusted, and then the whole story continues.
And David was the same way. Mm-hmm. David depended on God for everything.
What about young sisters? Because this wasn't something I was planning to ask, but in this world where women are the role of women, men and women, in Christ, neither male nor female or so on, are all one in Christ. But that doesn't mean our roles are the same.
No.
And in this day and age, there's more and more women preachers. They're trying to just have the exact same roles and things like that. Do you have any advice for a young sister of she's seeing all the things going on in the world. All these other girls are doing this in the Bible. You know,
see, my answer to that would be obey those things that you have learned in your Sunday school, because they're not teaching you to be a loose woman. They've got nothing to do with that. Don't get caught up just because your teammates happen to do certain things that you know are not right. Don't ever get weak. Don't ever get weak. Just believe the truth. Believe the truth.
You know, and it boils down to think to, regardless of what the world around us is like, what they're doing, the standard that God has set has not changed.
Nope.
So we could be 100 years in the future where, you know, a lot of the things that the world even considers morally wrong today are just gone, and everything's accepted. That does not change what God requires of man.
No.
And so it goes back to reading your Bible. If you know what God requires of man and women, different, because we all have different roles to play. Yes, but don't get puffed up by the leaven of the world, I guess.
No, because I don't see how the world can get any worse than what it is right now.
And things, brother, you know, Thomas Williams, a lot of people that age said the same thing, and here we are. So you never know. But I guess the last thing, somebody who's learning about the truth, let's say they're coming from the outside. Yeah. What advice would you have for them? Maybe they're outside of the truth, or maybe they're coming with a friend who's in the truth. What advice would you have for somebody who this is new to? Maybe they're from a different church or nothing at all. Do you have any advice for anybody in that situation?
I feel like the advice has already been taken if he's talking to you about the truth. You know, that advice has been changed, but it goes back again to studying and reading, asking questions of, you know, if I'm the teacher, if you're my neighbor and I'm teaching you the truth, you can come to my house any time of day or night. You got a question, you know, and we'll sit down and read it.
So ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions, because that's how you learn.
Yeah. You know? Part of teaching is to me the first step is to show them. A perfect example is Kathy. Okay, she wasn't a Christadelphian. She was a Church of Christ or something, not real religious, but she is very knowledgeable about the scriptures, okay? So when I first started dating her and wanted to work it up into a marriage, the first thing I told her, I said, now I want you to know, I've been in prison, okay? I've been in prison. And she never snapped. She was sitting beside me in the truck. She was just sitting there. And I told her I'd been in prison. She didn't snap around, you know, and do anything like that. She said, well, what happened? So then I went into the truth, you know, and told her. Well, she understood that. And when I told her, because I registered as a conscientious objector, and she understood that, yeah, I thought maybe you got thrown in for going to prison, you know. It was just the idea that it was all not alien to her.
I guess the whole theme of everything is just read your Bible.
Read.
You know? Even if you don't, there's different reading plans, but, you know, reading a chapter a day instead of doing the whole, you know, there's that plan where, you know, the Bible Companion takes you through the Old Testament once, New Testament twice. That's great. But people have different schedules, so if you can only even just do one chapter a day, get some bread.
Now, when we were raising our kids, we read that schedule. You know, we read it to teach them the schedule and how important it was. And I know, like Kendra and Jamie, and they all do their daily readings and talk about things. And you know, Justin got baptized because his boys asked him, how come Mom's baptized and you're not? So I think that's the coolest thing I ever heard in my life. Yeah. That they weren't grown men like they are now. They were the littler guys, you know, the young.
Got them thinking, oh, my kids are asking me about this.
Yeah,
That's something to
yeah,
consider.
yeah. You know, so they're studying. They know that baptism is an important part of life. You know, that's where we've got to wind up, like Brother Dan was saying today. It's where we're going to wind up at. You know, if we do the right thing. If we don't, we're going to wind up just like we started out.
That's another important lesson of mind your surroundings, and also that verse talks about you may entertain angels
unawares.
So
Yep.
for good and for worse if we're doing things we shouldn't be. But
Yeah.
Anyways, well, thanks, Pete. Really.
My pleasure. I love talking the truth and experiences. I can't get enough of that.